among literally dozens or perhaps hundreds of colorful and memorable little phrases and aphorisms that Yogananda gave us, there's one that stands out right now in reference to the last 4 or 5 months, this being August of 2020, and the coronavirus has been part of our life since February or early March at any rate. And many changes in this world, and many changes in our own individual lives, of course, as well as a result. But he said, there are no obstacles, there are only opportunities. Now, there are a lot of ways to take that, and I'd like to just suggest a few, because at face value, well, as with a number of the other things that Yogananda said, this one as well, we may think, well, now wait a minute. I mean, there are obstacles. Then this thing is an obstacle. My business just closed, or I just lost my job, or, my health is potentially drastically impacted, or those that I love, et cetera, et cetera. We can look at this and think, gosh, that sure looks like an obstacle. That looks rather significantly like an obstacle, or like a significant obstacle. But what Yogananda is trying to inspire in us, and this is another phrase that is a helpful one to remember. We need to learn to be a cause and not an effect, which is to say that we need to learn to not just be sort of washed over by life and pushed around by life, but to learn to stand firmly on our own feet, face what needs to be faced, do what we're capable of doing to affect those things, but most of all, learn to work with the reality inside first, and then see how we can apply that. In other words, if we don't have peace of mind, we can't give peace to anyone. We can't give, I'm reminded of birthdays and Christmases where it's traditional to give someone a gift. Well, you can't give someone something that you don't own. You can't steal something and give it to them and have that be very much of a gift. That's not really in the spirit of giving. And similarly, we can't give what we haven't earned in our own lives in terms of inner peace or calmness or wisdom, etc. So coming back to there are no obstacles, only opportunities. Well, they are obstacles if that's how we look at them. And so that depends on our energy level and on our awareness level. If that's how we look at them, then indeed they are obstacles. But what he's trying to encourage in us is the thought that this is an opportunity. I can't change the fact that there's now a virus pandemic raging through the world and a whole lot of other circumstances. If I just look at today, late August, and, there are wildfires raging in all sorts of, in their hundreds all around California. So the air quality is poor. We would normally be out walking in the morning, enjoying the cool, fresh air before the temperatures get hot here in the Sacramento Valley. And we're not able to do that because we don't want to be breathing smoky air. I mean, that we could look at that as an obstacle. It's an obstacle to our health, or it's an obstacle to our happiness, our enjoyment of life, the way we've come to expect it to be for us. And yet, truly spoken, what Yogananda is saying is quite true. On the deepest level, these are opportunities. So I thought to just touch on how we can look at them as opportunities. One of the ways is to just simply say, okay, and actually just flat out ask Divine Mother, ask God, So here's our situation. Now, what are we going to do with this situation? What would you like? How would you like me to approach this? How can I best approach the situation? So introspection, Nirmala's spoken about this recently in talks about the niyamas, that we need to learn that art. We need to learn that skill and practice it regularly. Practice it daily. Look back on the day at the end and say, so who won? How did we do? What was the score? What can I learn from the effort of today, from the battlefield of today? Did I get pushed under? Was I just an effect, or was I in fact a cause? Did I learn to look at things as opportunities, or did I just sort of sit back and get squashed by the obstacles that I perceived in my life? So that's one level of it. But another level of it is to just simply look outwardly. If you look at the energy of the situation is pushing us inward. Many of us have been in lockdown to one degree or another, or very cautiously going out, wearing masks and social distancing, all of those basic precautions. But what does it do energetically? It forces us inward. Now, forcing us inward can be a trip down memory lane. It can be, a trip into difficult mental issues or situations in our lives. If we learn to see that going inward as an upliftment of energy, it can bring profound insight. It can become a profound reset of our lives. I'm reminded of a t-shirt that a friend wore many years ago in India. This was back in the days of Microsoft computers that were a little more traditional and a little bit less kind of user-friendly than they are now. And the t-shirt had letters, but it also had a part of a keyboard. And the letters just simply said Control, Alt, Delete. And those of you who are computer savvy will know, perhaps chuckle, that what that means is that's how you restart the computer. Those three keys pushed at the same time means the computer will start to reboot, or something important will happen that will allow you to kind of reset things. Well, that's kind of what this is doing for us. It's forcing us to re-examine. So, what do I find is valuable in my life, and what do I want to keep putting energy into? What do I find is not valuable in my life? What can I leave behind? How can I make my awareness a little more portable and a little more inward? Because that's what I have to work with. My reality is much more located around my home, or even if it isn't, it's just a little bit more restricted. I'm reminded of the planet astrologically that symbolizes this sort of thing is Saturn. It's the planet of restraint or restriction, or focus is a nice way to look at it. And if we think of that, it's a kind of, I've heard Saturn lovingly referred to as a choke collar. This is a sort of collar that you can put on a dog that if they start pulling against it, it sort of grabs onto them. And they learn, hopefully, very quickly that they don't want to do that, and it sort of guides their energy. Well, that's kind of what this is doing for us, too. We can rail and rage against the things that we're not able to do, and yet what Saturn is saying is turn your energy. Focus on something different, something deeper. Reset, reorient, reposition. And those jobs may not be comfortable. They may not initially be very enjoyable. Saturn is not real concerned about whether we're enjoying the process or not. We have to learn to enjoy the process, which, believe it or not, is quite possible to do. I have had to reset and reorient. I can't even begin to count the number of times in this lifetime. And it's just how things work. I'll just give you one example. When I was about 17 years old, I was a runner. I was a fairly good runner in high school. I mean, I wasn't winning state championships or anything, but I was moving along. I was quite competitive and capable, and I really loved it. And I got injured. And looking back astrologically, yes, it was a Saturn period in my life, and it was a changing of gears completely, and I was no longer able to run. I was halfway through my junior year, which is the 11th standard for those who, out of 12, who look at it that way. So I had a year and a half of high school left. I could not run competitively again after that injury. It took that long to heal. It was just tendonitis, but it was Achilles tendonitis, which is very symbolic to me. It was sort of like the only thing, but Saturn picked the only thing, and it got me, and I had to stop doing that kind of exercise. And all Saturn was trying to say to me, and now looking back decades later, I can see this very clearly, is reorient, turn in a different direction, put your energy in a new way. It was not saying what you were doing is bad. The running was wonderful. It was a wonderful sadhana. It was a wonderful beginning. It just wasn't useful as an only or as a major focus in life. And so Saturn was saying, look, take that energy, put it over here. And that's what this is telling all of us, is turn your energy. Now, you may find that the inward side of that looks very different from whatever I might see. That's perfectly fine. You may find that you even have more of an outward role than you ever had before. That's also perfectly fine. The lesson in it for you may be very different, but there is a lesson, and all of us can tune into it in one way or another. But meditate on that simple phrase, there are no obstacles, only opportunities, and find out how it resonates in your life. Namaste.